Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm so excited to have you here on our platform. Welcome. This is the first time we're actually broadcasting from our Florida location. And we are just so happy that we were able to get everything set up and have you meet with us. So we are going to have a fabulous show. And joining me is our co-host on our co-host team. He's also one of our talking heads, and he is an elevated listener on our listening team. Let's welcome Justin Mirigliani.
Dr. JACALYN, good to see you again. It's been a month.
Oh, it's insane. How are you doing?
Doing all right, thanks. Yeah, doing well. Getting ready for the summer and fun times ahead.
So tell us about this week. Something special is happening.
Yeah, so we're going to be at Lincoln Financial Field this weekend for the Crohn's Colitis Walk. And we're going to be raising money and awareness for folks with inflammatory bowel disease. And it's going to be so cool to be on Lincoln Financial Field with family and friends. And you and I are going to be broadcasting live from the event. And that's the first time that we've ever had a chance to do that. So I'm looking forward to that a lot and hoping we raise a lot of money and awareness. We know that probably one of the most underfunded communities, it would be the Crohn's colitis community, because it's such a silent disease. A lot of people don't talk about it. And I think that that needs to change, and I think it is changing, and we're part of that change, and I'm happy to be there for it.
Thank you, Justin. I feel the same way. And you have accomplished so much in addition to what you're doing on this platform and everything that you're doing for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. You're an incredible entrepreneur. You've hit a major milestone earlier in the year. And that's the kind of thing that we like to share on this platform so that people can get inspired and pumped up and excited and say, you know what? I remember I was going to give up. I was so close to saying, forget it. I'm going to go back to corporate. And then you make it. And you say, thank you, God, for being here with me. And thank you to my family and friends. Tell us a little bit about what you do when you're not on the platform. And then we're going to bring out our incredible guest.
Yeah, so when I'm not on the platform, I'm doing a lot of things. One is I train people on a lot of different Microsoft applications, especially Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, Visio, Project, Outlook, you name it. A lot of those Teams has been huge, obviously, especially with the pandemic. But now I'm starting to get into a lot of the soft skills training, conflict management, time management, leading productive teams. There are a lot of holes, a lot of gaps, I think, in corporate America and around the world. And I think that we need people to be trained in these disciplines. So I spend a lot of time doing that, building new curriculum constantly. And then, of course, I work on the charity, Checkmate's Charitable Association. Again, raising money and awareness for Crohn's and colitis, but also those with an ostomy. I think that that's another underfunded group of people. Not easy to talk about for a lot of people. Those of us who have an ostomy, those who love people who have an ostomy, it's something that is kind of in the corner, and I think we need to shine a light on that as well. So working with Checkmates is not only I'm hoping that we're helping other people, and I believe we are, but it's also cathartic for myself to be able to do something about the situation that I found myself in and find myself in today. So we're going to do NHL celebrity an NHL celebrity game in Philadelphia, probably in 2023 or early 24. And really the goal, I think, for me, and I talked to a lot of people on the board, we want to make this something that happens in NHL cities around North America. We want to go up to Canada. We talked to a lot of folks in Toronto to try to get something done there. And I think it's something that could be really exciting if we could get some NHL alumni on board. It's going to go a long way. So that's the goal. That's the goal.
Well, it's a fantastic goal, and I totally support you. And thank you again for being my friend and for co-hosting and for joining my team, Dr. J's Colitis crew. And we will be at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday. And
Yeah,
just so excited to meet all of our team members in person and broadcast live from there. So thank you for taking this journey with me.
well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on the platform.
I'd love for you to share with our audience how you interacted, connected with our guest today.
We talked about this before earlier today, and how small this world really is. And everybody who's seen this show and anybody who knows me knows I'm very open about what I've gone through with ulcerative colitis, and then the high grade dysplasia, and then of course the loss of my entire large intestine. And now I'm an ostomate, have an ileostomy, and uh, being involved in this group, and being in this community. I always am online looking for, folks who've been through it, maybe people who could help me, people who I can help, those who maybe are new to this, and are trying to navigate this new world. And I guess I just stumbled on the documentary called Semicolon Adventures of Ostomy Girl. And in the person whose life it was about was Dana Bernstein. And Dana had struggled and really, really suffered badly with Crohn's disease. And unfortunately, she passed away from Crohn's disease, I believe, in 2017. And I watched the documentary, and it was difficult to watch. I mean, there were a lot of times that I had to pause it and walk away. And even now, talking about it, I can feel myself welling up. It's hard to even talk about. But um, I thought, wow, what a strong person she was to be able to share all of that, and how I wish that I had gotten to meet her, and know about her. And in researching her, I found that her father was Edward Bernstein from Nevada. He's a lawyer in Las Vegas. And the more I researched Ed, the more I found out that we had a lot in common. And one of them is he, my father, and some of my father's friends were the first graduating class of Widener University Law School back in 1975. And I couldn't believe that that connection was there. It was so, I mean, talk about a small world. Here's a person that is in Las Vegas. I didn't know he was a Philadelphia son. But not only was he from Philadelphia, but he graduated the first law class out of that school, Widener University, and with my dad. And I thought, man, I got to reach out to Ed and find out more about him, and talk to him. And if nothing else, even if we didn't even connect, I just wanted to thank him for sharing Dana's life, and allowing Dana to be a bright light in this community. And it turned out that he's an incredible person. I had no idea that he was so accomplished. I mean, you're talking about a person who's an unbelievable lawyer. He's got some of the largest wins in Nevada history in his law firm. Just outstanding, incredibly accomplished. And then it turns out he's done a television show, the Ed Bernstein Show, for 33 years. He just hit his 1,000th show, and he's interviewed, I believe, 5 presidents, and all kinds of actors and entertainers. And I think, man, oh man, I mean, where does it end? He just is accomplished at everything. It's so exciting. And you take somebody who's this successful, and you wouldn't think that they would be able to give you much time, right? I mean, you think, how many people try to talk to him, and how many people try to pull him in different directions. And he calls me up on the phone one time and asked me about, the letter that I had written to him, and we talked for a little while. And every once in a while he'll call and check in. And about a few months ago, I was in the hospital for an overnight, and it was an ostomy situation. And looked at my phone about maybe a day later, and I saw that he called. And I texted him. I said, hey, Mr. Bernstein, hoping you're okay. I saw the missed call. And his answer was, I just wanted to check on you and see how you're doing. And no matter how accomplished he is, the compassion and the caring for other people is, in my book, and is even above the greatness in law and in television.
Justin, thank you for sharing that. I actually have little tears in my eyes, as a patient with ulcerative colitis since 1991, and I'm on the board of the foundation. And let's bring him out. Without further ado, let's welcome Ed Bernstein, prominent attorney, TV show host, politician, advocate, philanthropist. We are so super excited that you're joining us. Welcome.
It's really great to be here. Thank you both for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you for being here. So Justin was sharing how the two of you connected. If before we get into the interview about what all the wonderful things you're doing, how did you feel when you got that letter, and what was it about that letter that inspired you to reach out to him?
Yeah, my daughter Dana was diagnosed when she was 3 years old with Crohn's disease. At that time, it was very difficult to diagnose. She had a really difficult life. She spent about half her life in a hospital. Eventually, had no colon left, and um, was on just medications her whole life. And she just started to have organ failure little by little. And she passed in December of 2017. And as Justin indicated, before she passed, she was debating whether or not to have a colon transplant, large and small intestine transplant. It's a very rare procedure. There's only a few doctors in the world that do it. And because of her illness and her disease, she was very frail. She weighed about 85 pounds. And it was very difficult for them to find a colon that would even be a match for her. And then there was a lot of risk in getting a transplant. And of course, the ultimate risk would be death. She got the transplant. She was great for about 6 or 8 months. Then her organs started to reject and fail, and she subsequently passed. So when I got a letter from Justin that he independently had found her website and found her movie, which, by the way, had won several awards, film festival awards around the country, Ostomy, The Adventures of Ostomy Girl. That was just warmed my heart. I mean, I love to find people who Dana either has motivated, people she's inspired. She had a whole network of people online that I never knew about until after she passed, and I was going through her computer with all the people that she did communicate with and did try to help. As sick as she was always trying to help everybody. So I was really pleased when I got the letter from Justin.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, and since then, I have learned that Justin and I have a very profound interest in hockey as well.
We do.
I being an original Philadelphia Flyers fan, you're talking about going to law school at Widener, which at that time was really called Delaware Law School. I lived in Philadelphia, and I used to drive down. I worked 3 jobs during the day and would drive down to law school at night. And it was the same time frame when the Philadelphia Flyers were starting to get good, right before they won the Stanley Cup. So it was 1971, 72, 73. And so I'd be listening to the games, driving down to law school, back and forth. And I really started to get into hockey in those days. And of course, I became a big fan and was actually there when they won both Stanley Cups. Yeah, and continued to be a Philadelphia Flyers fan until Las Vegas got the Las Vegas Golden Knights in 5 years ago. So now Philadelphia is my second favorite team.
I just love that. I'm a Philly girl also. And I remember back in the 70s, I would have to sit a certain way to listen to the radio. I'd have to sit cross-legged and not move, because if I moved, then I would jinx them. And I had those soda cans. Remember they had the cans, I think it was 7-Up, and they had featured different players on the cans.
Yeah.
I'm really showing my age now.
You still have the cans. They're probably worth money now.
No, I don't have them. Darn it.
I still have a signed stick from a game, and I have signed photographs of Bobby Clark, Dave Schultz, and who was the other one? Bernie Perrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how those guys who were obviously from Canada stuck into the area too. They're still here. They're still ambassadors for the team. It's just, I think Ed Snyder set it up to be a family, and I think that continued throughout the years. They're really, a lot of them live here in New Jersey and Philadelphia area.
Yeah. When we got a team here in Las Vegas, we immediately became a sponsor. We sponsor the penalty box and the penalty kill and welcome message. We do a lot of sponsorships with the hockey team. So segueing back into Crohn's for a minute, we got a new coach 2.5 years ago, Pete DeBoer. Pete DeBoer is a former coach from San Jose,
Right.
and we had fired Coach Gallant, who is now the coach of the New York Rangers. And anyway, Pete just got fired last week, unfortunately. He was a great guy, but Pete also has Crohn's disease. So he's been very active and helpful in us raising funds here, because I'm very active in our chapter here in Las Vegas. Helped create the chapter a number of years ago.
That's
Well, I didn't know that
fantastic.
about Pete DeBoer. Yeah, because I had known he had coached. Was he in New Jersey for a while? I think he
Yes.
coached in New Jersey too.
You're good, man. He was in he was in New Jersey and before San Jose, and now he may end up in Philadelphia. Aren't you guys
Who
looking
knows?
for a coach?
That's
Well,
right.
if he does, you'll have a built-in ally there with your charitable things.
Yeah. So now I'm pulling for him. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So Ed, I
Ed,
know. Oh, good.
Oh,
JACALYN.
sorry. I'd love to chat with you at a future time about how the Philadelphia chapter and your chapter, maybe we can learn from each other some of the things that you're doing that maybe we could incorporate. How would that sound?
Yeah, it sounds great. We just became a chapter. I mean, for a number of years we were working. There's requirements to become a chapter, and one of the requirements is to have a gala. And the first year we had our gala in Las Vegas, it was the most successful first-time gala of any city in America. And then last year when we did a gala, I think it was the most successful gala of the year. We honored Dana White, who is a close friend of mine. Dana, the head of the UFC, and we raised about $1.5 million at our gala.
Wow.
Congratulations.
That's
Did you do it in
fantastic.
person?
Oh yeah.
You
That
did.
was last October. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're having our next one is this October, and we're also honoring some really spectacular people.
Well,
That's
I
awesome.
definitely will reach out to you about having a chat,
Yeah.
seeing how we can learn from each other. Justin?
So Ed, how did you make the transition? So you went to law school in the Philadelphia area. You were born and raised in the Philadelphia area. How did you make the transition to go to Las Vegas?
I hate to tell you this, Justin, but I got tired of gray skies. I just got tired. I love Philadelphia. Was a great place to grow up. I really loved being there, but I just couldn't stand the weather. And I always thought that I'd end up in LA, but um, I had a sister who had just moved to Vegas. We stopped here. This was in the 70s. And I got to tell you, in the 1970s in Las Vegas, it was really the Wild West. There was no speed limits, for instance, in Las Vegas. You could drive down the street at 110 miles an hour. There were no speed limits in some streets. Now, the residential streets, of course, had speed limits. But then that all changed when we had an oil shortage in the late 70s. We had the Arab oil embargo, and the federal government imposed a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit nationally in order to get highway funds. Then Nevada changed and became a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. But that's how wild it was. When I moved here, we had about 300,000 people in Las Vegas. Now we have close to 2.5 million.
That's incredible.
Ed,
That really
that is amazing. I just wanted to go back to something you said in the beginning of the show. You said you had 3 jobs. Is that correct?
Yeah. I worked. My dad had a deli over at by the University of Pennsylvania, across from the dental school. So I worked in my dad's deli. Then I started a vending machine business. This is while I was going to law school. I started a vending machine business, and then I opened up the smartest thing I did was I opened up a laundromat across the street from the dormitories of the University of Pennsylvania. And this was at a time period when air hockey was just becoming popular. So we opened up an arcade behind the laundromat. So while students were waiting to get their clothes washed, they were playing arcade pinball machines and air hockey games, and we did quite well. Um, then the vending machine business I learned in Philadelphia. In those days, was maybe not the best business for me to be in. It had a reputation of being mob controlled and that type of thing,
Mm.
and I started to run into broken machines during our most prime hours, and I realized, hey, this may not be the business for me. Maybe I should give being an attorney an opportunity, but I did not want to stay in Philadelphia. I wanted to move out west, and saw the opportunity in Las Vegas. We only had about 300 lawyers at the time. Now we have, I don't know, 20,000.
I love that
You know,
story. Thank you so much.
and you
You're
know what's
so
amazing?
resourceful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You know
look,
what?
it's like anything in life. Risk is important. Without taking a risk, there's never a gain. And if sometimes if you fail at a risk, you shouldn't allow it to discourage you because, of course, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Right.
Yeah.
But some people will look at it and say there's only 300 lawyers in Las Vegas. I'm not going out there. It's a graveyard for lawyers. You looked at it as there's only 300 lawyers out here. I can make a name for myself out here, and I think that's the difference between success and failure.
Yes, of course, yes. Now, of course, being a lawyer today is a whole lot different than it was 45 years ago when I was doing it. It's much more competitive, and it's a different world. And opportunities have changed, and things have changed. Being a lawyer is hard today if you're starting out.
Ed, a follow-up I have for you is on this platform, we really like to provide education for people, especially business owners, people who are in the corporate world or they're part of the Great Resignation. And so you just mentioned risk, and I think also we're understanding that you see things maybe differently than other people see them. What can you suggest for our audience who they're afraid to take a risk? They're afraid to leave what they're doing, but they're absolutely miserable and they continue to be miserable and they're stuck.
Well, I mean, you just said it, Jacqueline. If you continue making the same mistake, it's not going to change unless you do it differently. So if you're miserable and stuck because you're not taking a risk, then it's time to, you know, obviously do the opposite, because what you're going to do the same thing and you're going to repeat the same tragedies. But when at that time, I'll tell you a quick little story. I was the first attorney to do any marketing in Nevada, and I've been marketing ever since. I have a television show that's not really law related; it's more celebrity and entertainment directed. But I saw the value of marketing, and I saw this one day. I was watching television, and this is 1977, 1978. And we had a hospital in Las Vegas called Sunrise Hospital. And all of a sudden, a commercial came on for Sunrise Hospital. Now, I got a flashback, 45, 50 years, because when you watch television today, seeing an ad for a hospital or a doctor or even a pharmaceutical medicine, it's very commonplace. In those days, nobody did it. And the first thought that occurred to me was, why would a hospital have to advertise for business? Well, this particular hospital did a study, and they found that hospitals are essentially in the hotel business. They're vacancy factors. They need to fill rooms. And they realized that the rooms were filled from Monday to Friday, and they were empty on the weekends. So they started to understand the problem. What happened in those days is most of the people who were admitted into hospitals were admitted by physicians. There wasn't, in today's world, you can go to a quick care or you can go to the ER and get admitted very easily. In those days, it was basically doctors who admitted you. Well, doctors would admit patients on Mondays, and discharge them the best they could on a Friday, because doctors did not want to have to be, on call over the weekend for a patient in the hospital. So if there's any way to get the patient out of the hospital by Friday, doctors would do that. So Sunrise Hospital recognized the issue, and they started doing a television commercial saying, well, if you check in for an optional surgery on a Friday and spend the weekend in the hospital, we'll send you on a trip for two, free airfare on Hawaiian Air to Hawaii. And I looked at this commercial and I thought, oh my God, if a hospital can advertise for business, why can't a lawyer? And that's when we began marketing on TV.
What a great story. I
That's
absolutely love
interesting.
that.
But,
Really?
but here it was, I saw in a different industry, somebody in doing something cutting edge in a different industry, and I applied it to my industry.
So, Ed, when it comes to taking risks, how do we know when we've gone too far or when we need to,
Because
to
we've talked about that in past shows about, for instance, I have a wife and 2 kids that I have to put through college. Do I gamble their college tuition to try to further business, or do I, it's kind of that fine line trying to find that common ground, that area.
Yeah, I would never gamble my children's future as
Right.
part of a risk. That's when you find an investor to help you. But look, risk is everybody has different limits of risk. So I think it's very difficult to say when do you not take a risk. I mean, it's such a personal decision. But being uncomfortable anytime you start something new is always going to occur. So I would discount the uncomfortableness that you feel when you take a risk, because everybody feels it, because you're doing something different. You're not accustomed to it. After a while, you do something long enough, and we all learn how to live with it. So I think it's an individual decision.
thank you.
How did you push yourself out of those comfort zones? Because I know for me, there are certain things that I just am not really great at doing. I'm not a great salesperson. I'm not a great marketer. I really struggle with that. You talked about trying to find investors. I don't know if you remember, I started a documentary about the Flyers from the 80s, and that's what we're doing now. We're looking for investors to get involved. And how do you push yourself to do those things?
Well, I would disagree about your modesty about being a marketer. You're doing it right now. I mean, what you're doing, and you're doing it very well. So you are able to market. Look, we all have strengths and weaknesses. You need to marry whatever it is that skill you may not have with either a consultant or a mentor or an investor. You need to find somebody who can provide those things that you feel uncomfortable with. And of course, once again, getting out of your comfort zone is important as well. That's how you grow. So, I mean, you don't know, you say you're not a good salesperson, but you don't really know until you try. So, I mean, if you're passionate about something, automatically you become a good salesperson if you're passionate about it. So, look, I mean, you're never too old to try. I'm a couple of years ago, my wife is Peruvian. I wanted to learn Spanish. So, at 70 years old, I started learning Spanish. So you're never too old to start trying something new.
No, I agree with that totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're right though. It's the push. I think to get that initial burst, to get out of that feeling of discomfort is the hardest part.
And understanding that you're going to have that discomfort, and don't let that dissuade you from anything. And then you have to just be diligently and work hard at whatever it is, and give it an ample amount of time, because things do take time and they do take patience.
What made you go in? I mean, you're so successful in law. What made you go into television?
To me, it was another way of marketing, a way to differentiate myself from other attorneys. We started out kind of as a consumer-based TV show where I would pick up stories from magazines like Consumer Reports, where products have been recalled, and it was kind of a consumer information type of show. And then we'd have different segments where I had a doctor doing a medical segment, a fitness expert doing a fitness segment, a political person do a political segment, and I would do an interview. And then after a while, I realized that I really enjoyed doing the interview because I got to meet such incredible people. I was not, by the way, I was horrible at doing interviews, horrible. And I still find myself even mediocre today at doing it. But the joy it brought me and the experience and the education that it brought me to interview people who I never thought I'd have the opportunity to meet, whether they be entertainers, rock stars, politicians, musicians, authors. It's just been an enlightening and incredible experience for me. Some of them have turned out to be really good friends over the years.
And I love the fact that you're just so transparent. You just put it out there that you don't think you're a good interviewer. I've watched your shows; you're excellent. But what is it that you think you could be doing differently?
Well, maybe what I do works with my my MO, and my MO is to let the guests do most of the talking. So I'm not a host who interrupts or needs to talk a lot. I'm much more of a quiet type of guy. So I just try to ask a question that I think my guests, my viewers would be interested in hearing from the guest. I used to over prepare when I did TV interviews. The first couple of years, I would just research so much. I stopped doing that because then I realized I had too much information about the guests and I was not asking some of the simple questions that a viewer totally unfamiliar with the guest would ask. So now I only spend about 10, 15 minutes preparing and just kind of wing it like I'm meeting the guest for the first time.
I
think that's been our approach, JACALYN. I think that's what we've been doing with our shows too.
It is. We don't have any script. In fact, some of our team members were using a script or they were meeting with the guests before the show. And I said, no, we don't do that because then we're not listening. We're actually reading and we're not paying attention. We're not following through.
Right. You find yourself going to the next question that you've written down. Right.
Yeah.
For sure. And we've had some great guests. Look, when I was growing up, I can remember living in Philadelphia and being a big Moody Blues fan. Well, the lead singer of the Moody Blues, for those of you who may not know, they sing songs like Nights in White Satin and Tuesday Afternoon. Justin Hayward is the lead singer, been on my show, I don't know, half a dozen times. He'd come in with his acoustic guitar and sing Tuesday Afternoon, and I was on cloud nine. I mean, I had experience. I mean, it was meaningful to me. Meeting people like Anthony Hopkins, sitting down and getting to know Anthony Hopkins one-on-one. It's an incredible experience for me. What a nice, amazing man. And I learned actually, oftentimes some of the biggest, most famous people that you can think of are some of the nicest people. Now, you meet some on the other side too, which I won't go into, but by and large, 95% of my experiences with doing people I've met on the TV show have been great.
And with our shows, we're trying to grow. Obviously, we're just we're cutting our teeth. How do you get guests like that to say yes to your show? Now, you said yes because we've had a history together. We've talked to each other. We've had conversations. We've become friends. But how do I go to, an Anthony Hopkins or to any kind of actor, actress, and I don't have the name to pull them in? So how do you do that? How do you get around that?
Well, either did I at the time, but the advantage that I had was living in Las Vegas because every celebrity, every person of note, every person speaking to a convention, every every author eventually comes to Las Vegas, either to perform or to speak or to go to a convention. So when they are here, and you know how, Jacqueline, you get emails all the time from publicists trying to get people on shows. Um, you know, I'm the one of the few local shows that at that time were in Las Vegas. So oftentimes people would reach out to us. That was a big advantage being in Las Vegas.
Maybe we need to relocate.
Yeah, I
No.
was going to say.
Where
But
are
now
you?
Vegas is huge.
You're in Florida now?
You know what? I have something to admit. When we first started this show, I have a brand new setup because I just flew in last night. So it took 3 hours to set it up. And when I could hear three of me while I was talking, no, I am not in Florida. I just left Florida last night and I'm in New Jersey. And I had to pull all the cords out and just, so I apologize. No, I'm in New Jersey. I was completely overwhelmed with, did you hear me 3 times also?
No.
Okay.
No. You sounded fine from
Okay.
the side. Yes.
I'm in Avalon, New Jersey. I was just in Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, okay. Well, from beach to beach, huh?
Yes.
It's pretty nice. You know, we were looking for a place in South Florida and looking at a high rise there, and then they had that building that collapsed 3 blocks from where we were looking
Oh, wow.
in Sunny Isles, and,
Mhm.
and I decided not to live in a high rise.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Listen-
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask a question that I have about the television show is how do you keep your branding separate? So you have your law practice and then you have the TV show and you're still a lawyer, you're still a TV show host, but they're separate entities, separate brands. How do you do that?
Branding is important, and it's often a challenge. I don't find the branding between my television show and my law practice to be a problem. But I did in 1999, because of my daughter Dana. Um, we were traveling around from hospital to hospital, from um, from treatment to treatment, and most of the treatments she was getting in the 90s were new, and they were not covered by insurance. Even things, Justin, you may remember in those days, stuff like Remicade and Humira,
Right.
things that are mainstream today, they weren't covered by insurance. And some of these medications were thousands of dollars each infusion. So, having been through this experience with her and seeing the costs of the medications, I got interested in politics. And at that time, I decided that I was going to run for the U.S. Senate to do something about healthcare and to do something about the cost of prescription drugs. Now, of course, here it is 20 years later, 22 years later, and still nothing has changed. But I was committed to it. And so I was faced with a dilemma at that point on on rebranding, because I had to become a rebrand from a personal injury lawyer into a serious U.S. Senate candidate.
Right.
So we found a media group in Washington, D.C., and I spent a lot of time with them, and we carefully started to transition from lawyer to Senate candidate by talking to some of my clients that we had helped and having them talk about, the success and and how grateful they were for having used us as attorneys in their personal stories. Well, I ended up losing the race in 2000, in the year 2000. That was the same presidential election as Bush Gore.
Right.
And then I had to go back to practicing law. So we had to transition back almost in the reverse way. That was a bigger challenge for me, Jacqueline, than transitioning or worrying about my branding for the TV show or the lawyer thing, because oftentimes there is a synergy. Now we will do TV shows with people like Alan Dershowitz, with Nevada Supreme Court justices, with congressmen, with senators, people like that. So there is a lot of relationship between law and my show, but I don't make it law focused. I do not talk about like cases. I don't talk about what the law is. I think most people find that boring. So we just focus on the entertainment and the personalities of our guests.
Thank you, Ed. I really appreciate that. Something I wanted to ask you as a follow up is obviously we're live streaming right now as opposed to meeting in a studio. And what are your thoughts about the future of television? Do you think it's some combination therein, or do you think people are going to be, some people just are network people, some people are streaming people? What are your thoughts?
I think it's absolutely a combination. We do both. We work in the local NBC affiliate here in Las Vegas. That's what we've done for the last 33 years. When COVID happened, we did exactly what you're doing. It's much easier to get guests via telecommunications like this. But I think it's much, I don't know, it's much more simpatico when you can be, in a room with somebody. So we're still doing both. I'm doing, oftentimes I can't reach somebody, particularly if one of our U.S. senators are in D.C. So we'll do a show on Zoom with them. But I'll tell you, it's much easier to have access to people this way. I'm convinced it's a combination of both.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm thinking, good, because we just started our platform in January, so January the 10th, and we actually started live streaming last year. So I think we have 1,200 shows in so far, and everyone is a learning experience. So I'm so grateful that you're here to share your wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, the future. Look, everything changes so rapidly. I mean, who would have thought, 2.5 years ago, nobody even knew what Zoom was, right? And here we are living with it all the time. But once again, as I said, it makes everybody so much more accessible, location-wise and time-wise. I mean, you don't have to limit yourself to even the United States. You can be anywhere in the world talking to people.
Very true. Go ahead, Justin.
From the perspective of what a family man you are, you went through so much with Dana, and I know that your family time is very important to you. As an entrepreneur, I know I struggle sometimes to find that line between family time and business time. How did you navigate that, and was that a struggle for you at all?
No, it was never a struggle, and I learned from a very famous author named Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey wrote the book Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Years and years ago, I went to a seminar in Sundance, Utah, with this group, and he said, "Let's do an exercise." And he took a jar of an empty glass jar, and on our desks were stones of different sizes, from little pebbles to nice size rocks. And he said, "Here's the contest. I want you to fill up this glass jar with as many stones and rocks as you can fit into it." Well, as different people were filling up their jars, we all had different results. And when we started to count the number that went in, the most successful people that filled the jars are the ones who put the large rocks in first, and then went down diminutively in size until you got to the smallest little pebble. And Stephen Covey said, the large rocks have to go in first. And the large rocks are the things in your life that are important to you: your health, job, your family, whatever it is that's important to you. So I always made sure that every day, I fill my jar with the large rocks first.
It's funny. I actually trained that. I did a soft skills class about 3 weeks ago, and I did that exercise with the folks in the class. So it's pretty neat to hear you say that story. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it originated with Stephen Covey.
Is he the first?
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
But so
You
I
know,
get, so to me, it's it's my family, my health, my profession. So so every day I fit in my exercise and the doctor's visit, whatever it is, that's a priority in my life. And I literally will um, calendar my day around those three big rocks that I put in every day.
wow. And I
And
think
I want
that's one of the things that I find with my students sometimes is, and even myself, is we learn these things, but sometimes we don't put them into practice. It's one thing to learn these ideas and to read the books and to get the right path. It's another thing to follow it. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. And I think that's where the success comes from, forcing yourself and being disciplined to do those things.
Well, discipline is important. My wife does some of the things that JACALYN does, and she's a life coach, and she just published a book 2 weeks ago, a journal. And I've never used a journal. I've never done a diary. I've never journaled myself.
Right.
So and it just seems like I don't have the time to wake up in the morning and write something in a journal, and before I go to sleep, write something in a journal. And quite honestly, I've been doing it now for the last 2 weeks, and it is making a difference in my day, and I'm enjoying it. Um, but what you're saying, Justin, is sticking with it is important. Now, if you miss a day, it's not an excuse to miss the second day. It's like everything else, whether it's anything that's important to you, you have to be consistent and do it. Exercise being and diet being an example of that.
And you spoke about health, and I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to give themselves grace and not put so much pressure on themselves. And when I think about you with some of these cases that you've tried, I can only imagine the pressure must have been huge. And even though you are the consummate expert, how do you deal with pressure like that? And what can a business person do when they're under a similar kind of pressure?
Well, I think it goes back to what we just talked about. That and it's a balance. You just can't live in the pressure all day long. So yeah, finding something, an outlet, whether it be exercise, whether it be meditation, whether it be spending time with your family, whether it be reading, taking some entertaining, reading that you like, non or fiction books that you like, or just taking a walk. You need to find something to release pressure. Being in trial is 24/7 of pressure. When you're not in court, you're spending the evenings preparing for trial. The next day is incredibly stressful, and it's you need to find those outlets.
I always wanted to be a trial attorney. I always thought it would be so glamorous and and you get to stand up and speak in front of everyone. But there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes. And I'm sure your entire team is supportive in one way or another, right?
Yes, and the best thing about being a trial lawyer is that when you speak, the other side cannot interrupt. So you can just say what you want to say. When you're a father and you're a parent, everybody interrupts you.
That's
Right?
right.
You have to go to work not to be interrupted.
And I have so enjoyed meeting you, and we could ask you so many more questions, but we have another show coming up right after this. Would you come back and see us again?
Sure, I would be happy to. Maybe next time I'll bring my wife on, who can really advise us on some of
Cool.
these things.
Oh, I would
And
love that.
even on the other show too, because we do a show on Crohn's and colitis. We actually do Let's
Oh,
Kick Crohn's and Colitis, IBD.
I'd
So
love
that might be
to.
one where we could
I'll be
talk
happy
more
to
about.
do something. Yeah, on that, Justin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we could talk more about Dana and what she's brought to this world, and also thank you for all you do for all of us in this community. You know what a struggle it is. So
Yeah, I do. And it's not just a struggle for the person with the illness, it's a struggle for the entire family.
exactly. Exactly.
And
Well,
Ed,
nice,
we have
really nice to meet you. Yeah.
nice to meet you. We have on average 29 shows a week, so there's a number of them. I think we could just have you full time, just being a guest. But I know you have a life, so I'd love to have your wife on the corner bookstore as well.
I'll have her send you an email.
Fantastic.
Great.
Well, I'm
Thank
going
you.
to spotlight you, and if you could share with our audience, if people are interested in connecting with you, reaching out, hiring you, going and seeing your show, where can they find this information?
You can find everything at edbernstein.com. Easiest way to get me.
All right. Thank you for making it simple for people to
Thank you.
contact you.
And Justin, I'm still waiting for a playoff game with the Flyers and the Knights.
That'd be awesome.
You need to come out to our new stadium, our new arena here for a Flyers game one of these days.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, it'd be nice to meet you in person finally. I know we've never had a chance to actually see each other, but it'd be great to do that.
Okay, you guys take care.
All right.
You
Thanks,
too.
you too. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you so much for bringing Ed to the show. He's really a tremendous person, and I'm going to connect with him about a number of things. So,
Yeah.
Justin, we have your show coming up right after this, but for people who want to reach out to you and they want to find out, what is Justin speaking on tonight on Talking Heads?
Well, tonight we're going to talk about conflict management. So probably not everybody's favorite topic, but it's an important one. And we'll talk about ways to work with conflict. We'll talk about types of personalities, and have a PowerPoint slide, couple slides to show you on the show. So we'll get to that. Obviously, we can't do 4-hour classes in the amount of time that we have, but we're going to hit the main points.
And how can people reach you?
Well, a few ways. One is you could go to my website, which is www.justforyoutc.com. For the charity, it's www.checkmatescharity.com. My email address is justin@justforyoutc.com. My cell number is 610-324-5545. And you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. I'm on it. LinkedIn, all the biggies.
All right. We know where to find you, my friend. And I know I'm going to
Yes.
find you in the other studio in just a few minutes for Talking Heads. So I'll let you go and do that, and I'll be there to join you.
Thank you, Dr. JACALYN.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. If you would like to be a guest on any of our shows, please go to usaglobaltv.com, and you can actually contact us there about being a guest or being on our team. If you're interested in contacting me personally, you can find me over on my other website, drjacalyn.com, where I teach people how to listen at an elevated level. Our team continues to grow, and I really have made it my mission to help people learn how to listen without interrupting, without judging, without providing a solution, and without stage hogging and stealing the story and making it all about yourself, and the other person is there thinking, I didn't even get to finish what I wanted to say. You took it away from me. So if you're interested in becoming an elevated listener, you'll be featured on our websites, both usaglobaltv.com and drjacalyn.com. You'll also get to be a regular guest on our show, The Listening Mentor. So I hope you'll join us there. That's all we have for right now. I hope that you'll stay with us. We have Justin coming back for Talking Heads, and then we have our regular programming this week. Thank you. We'll see you shortly. Bye.